I'm Ella Majors, a vegan empowerment coach. I went vegan in 1995, and here's why. There's a little story behind it. I was 7 years old, and I got out of school. I was in first grade, I got picked up by my mom. She asked me how my day was, and I said, Mom, we learned about this guy named Daniel Boone in school. And I said, this guy was so mean. And for anyone who doesn't know who Daniel Boone is, he's one of our first American folk heroes, and he wore a raccoon hat, and he carried around a shotgun, and he was kind of an outdoorsy kind of person. And I said, this guy was mean because he shot animals and he ate them. And she was really honest with me, and she said, well, Ella, we're very fortunate. We get to go to the grocery store and just pick up our meat now. We don't have to do that ourselves anymore. And it was at that moment that I connected the food on my plate with the animal that it was. And I looked at her and I said, well, I'm never doing that again, Mom. And that was it. I never ate meat again. So that was in 1987. So that's when I went vegetarian, stopped eating meat. Again, I was 7 years old. I really took it on. It was like I knew my mission in life at that point. I was like, why are we killing animals to eat them? We don't have to. And I started eating just the sides dishes, at the dinner table. And I was great. And I was an athlete since I was 5 years old. I swimming, gymnastics. I had boundless energy. And so I was thriving on the sides. And I was writing in school. I look back and see writings. I was just a spokesperson for animals from that very young age. I said, why are we eating animals? If I had my way, if my biggest wish is for everybody to stop eating animals. And somehow, and this was way back, way before internet and all of that, but somehow I started doing my own research and really started to put together the cruelty involved in all the industries, dairy and eggs in particular. And so when I was 15, I went totally vegan and became an animal rights activist, was leading protests and demonstrations, and I was 15 on the side of the road sitting in cages and demonstrating what it's like for a lab animal to live in their conditions in factory farms. And so, yeah, I spent my teenage years as an animal rights activist.
And this is in North Carolina?
This is in Chapel Hill, North Carolina.
Wow. So you were an activist that young and in North Carolina, of all places, in the 90s? That's impressive.
That's right, yep. 1995 is my vegan year. I put it here with an INSO on my wrist because it represents kind of enlightenment. So I feel like it's at that point that we can embrace enlightenment when we understand and make that connection.
So was there something in particular that you saw that helped you realize that dairy is scary?
I got in touch with PETA and Vegan Outreach, and they sent me all the leaflets and flyers and brochures and things like that, so I had to read about it, but it made perfect sense. I was so open. I think I was already open to the suffering of animals. I think a lot of the struggles, I've struggled with depression in my life. I think a lot of that did stem from this really deep connection that I felt with animals and with their suffering from such a young age. And that's a hard thing to deal with when you really open your heart to the massive suffering that's happening each and every second of every day. And I spent a lot of my years as a young person in a lot of pain from that. It was something that I had to learn to live in this world where most people, the vast majority of people, see the world in a very different light, a different lens. It's like you're seeing the same world but in a different lens. And that can be a really lonely place to be.
Yeah, and you were a young teenager in North Carolina in the 90s. I'm sure there wasn't anybody else like you.
Yes, no. I was in middle school bringing buttons, boycott L'Oreal, for example, that tested on animals, and was passing them out. And the crazy thing is, when I think back to those times, it never occurred to me, and I was a shy kid. I was 5 years old, and my parents had to teach me to say hello to people. Like, I'm not a naturally, super outgoing person, but when it came to animals and being a voice for them, nothing could stop me. And it didn't feel hard. It didn't feel like a lot of effort. I was so called to do it. And it never occurred to me to be like embarrassed about being different. None of that like came into play. I really owned it, and I just felt so connected to the animals, and that I knew it was my purpose, like my mission in life was to take a stand for them and spread awareness and help people see. And it was honestly, it was a little bitter pill to swallow, because I thought, well, if only people knew, right? Like me, I didn't know, and then I knew, and so I changed. And so in my mind, it was like, well, people just don't know. So as long as I give them the information, everybody's going to go vegan. And it was a bitter pill to swallow when I realized from doing all those, direct action events, that a lot of people weren't ready to know. They didn't want to know.
When you were out there doing this, were you always alone doing it, or did you eventually get some people doing it, or did you already have some people somehow?
Yeah, no, I connected with it. There was a animal rights organization in Chapel Hill that I connected with. I was, of course, the youngest person, and I was, my parents. I was so fortunate to have parents that supported me, and they all followed suit eventually, but they really recognized that this was not a phase, that this was a core piece of who I was, and they supported me. Before I could drive, they were driving me to the protests that I was organizing.
That's awesome. What about like kids your age though?
Yeah, I mean,
No, were you able to influence any like kids your age, or get any to kind of follow along and hang out, or were you always alone doing that?
I was pretty alone, to be honest, with among peers. Yeah, most people did not have they seemed to respect my views, but they didn't seem very connected to the desire to make any changes for the most part.
Now, family, it sounds like they've been very receptive. Talk about that a little bit. You've had some success there, right?
Yeah, yes, great success. My dad went vegan several years after I did. He had dabbled in vegetarianism in his day because he was Buddhist, and my younger sister went vegan shortly after I did. Now she has a vegan partner, and they have 3 vegan kiddos from birth. Yeah, 2, 4, and 6-year-old. And the 6-year-old is, and it's interesting how, kids connect differently, but the 6-year-old, you ask her what her greatest wish is, and she says for everybody to be vegan. Yeah, I know, it's so great. And then my mom followed suit too. She kind of went the slow route, and then she actually got colon cancer. And when she got cancer, she made the full switch and hasn't looked back. And that's almost going on 10 years.
Like significant others, could you be with somebody who isn't vegan?
This is a very good question. And I am single. So it's a tough, I go back and forth. I mean, ultimately, do I want a partner that sees the world in the same light as me and who connects to the compassion of animals? Absolutely. Could I be in a house where there's meat? No. Could I end up with somebody who might? I don't know. I'm still exploring that. It's a really tough position, because it's so deeply a part of who I am that can I be really intimate with somebody, like truly deeply connected on a spiritual level, which is something I really crave. I don't know how I could do that with somebody who's not vegan.
This is pretty rare that somebody's able to convince both of their parents and siblings and whatnot. You're gonna have to give us some advice.
Well, this is the tough part, right? Because I don't think it is about convincing people. I don't think we can convince people. I think, and how I've gone about activism has really shifted over the years as well, right? That was something that I think the purity of just being who I was. And when you're that young age, you really can't be anything else. Like, you just are who you are. And so when you're shining that light and being so authentic and genuine, I think that's a very attractive quality. It just gets harder and harder to do that the older we get, because we're so hardwired and we're so programmed. I think that was really helpful for my parents and my family who loved me unconditionally, and for them to kind of just see me as an example. But that's kind of how I shifted my activism from going that route of protests and direct action to the fitness industry. And that's what I did after college. I jumped into the fitness industry, and I had a very strong, lean physique, and people would, ask me, what do you do? I want to know. So all of a sudden they were coming to me and being like, I want advice. Whereas with some of the activism, direct activism, it's like, here, take it, take this information. I don't want it. When someone comes to me and wants to know, then what a great opportunity. So that's the route I went. I became a personal trainer, started working in the fitness industry. I even competed in 2007 and won first place in the bikini division of the FAME World Championships, which I did at a time when almost nobody, we got Robert Cheek, of course, but almost nobody was competing. So I wanted to show people, and luckily I won, because that's not my cup of tea. Like, competing is not my cup of tea. And if I hadn't, but I am very competitive, so if I hadn't have won, I would have definitely had to do another one. But I found that was kind of my place in activism, was being this example of what was possible. And outward appearance, it just is. It's what people see right away.
Did you ever try to push this on your parents, or did you just always just role model it? Because you were doing activism, but you weren't really doing it toward your family.
Right.
Is that right?
Yeah, I think it was more they
just saw you doing it.
Yeah. That was what it was. It was them seeing my passion and how important it was to me. And then because it was important to me, it was important to them.
Have you tried to be in relationships with non-vegans, and how did that go?
Yes. I've been in many non-vegan relationships over my years, turning 43 this year. Well, honestly, the pool of vegan men is not very high. Of course, prerequisite, I would say, well, you've got to at least be knowledgeable, right? So, watching documentaries is like a prerequisite to dating me. So I would say, well, have you, checked this one, Earthlings and Cowspiracy and What the Health, check these off the list, that I know that you know. Because what I think is the empowering piece here is the ability to make a conscious and mindful choice, not just going with the programming of what society has told you is right and is okay. That's what I want for people to be able to do, is make a conscious choice. If you're not ready to have that cognitive consonance yet, I get that might take some time, right? That cognitive dissonance is so strong. But it's got to start with a willingness and openness to learn. And that is a prerequisite for me to date somebody. I need them to be open.
It sounds like you've been very ethically and emotionally attached to this in such a way that it's kind of maybe been hard to deal with. How do you deal with it in such a have you found anything, and maybe your fitness and just pouring yourself into your work, is that how you deal with it?
It is. I really, over the last few years especially, have been on a journey to heal my own trauma. I've got I think just the trauma of, and I realized this not too long ago, when it comes to feeling a lot of guilt, actually, that I didn't make a bigger difference. And I think as a teenager, I go back and I think, I had some very self-destructive years as a teenager. And I just wonder how much of that is related to the pain that I felt of the suffering in the world. And so I've struggled with depression and anxiety for my whole life, really. And last year I decided that I really wanted to address that head on. I've been on a spiritual path for the last few years, and so I decided to go to Peru and do an ayahuasca journey. And that was really, really powerful for me. I got off antidepressant medications, which I had been on, and went the route of plant medicine. So I've been exploring this last year, and really doing a lot of inner work, because what I do know is that the more I can allow my inner light to shine, the more effect I can have on other people, like I did with my parents, right? So I think that inner work is so important. That compassion for ourselves is so important. And I think in the vegan movement, especially among animal rights, like we almost punish ourselves a lot of that time, because there's so much pain inside because of all the suffering and that connection to that suffering, that we feel like we should suffer too. And I think the more that we suffer, the more energy we put out that's not welcoming, that's not helping the movement. So I really feel called to work within myself and to help other people work on their selves too.
And you do that a lot, probably through your day job, right? Is it a health coach?
I call it a vegan empowerment coach, because it goes beyond, physical health. It's really about holistic health and helping people come from a place of self-compassion.
So what's it like? Somebody comes to you and you guys do this on like Zoom or something, on the phone, or do you actually see people on one-on-one? And do you work with people just on like nutrition and try to just interject some of this other stuff, or are they actually coming to you for this other stuff? Are you like a counselor too?
Right. Well, most people come because they want to see physical changes, right? That's the in. And I work with people one-on-one and in group settings, but they're ready to do something different. They've done the diets, they've done the counting calories and the tracking macros, and the focus has always been on food and weight loss, right? Or body transformation. So when they come to me, do they still want to see those things? Yes, but they want to see them in a sustainable long-term way. So what I share with them is the way we go about doing that is very different. It's a very different approach. And the people that are coming to me are ready for that different approach.
Yeah, and you and I were talking off camera, and the way you phrased it, I think, was that it's not just what you eat, it's how you eat. So talk about that a little bit, because I really appreciate that.
I think we're really disconnected with our food, and that causes all sorts of issues, not even about the choices we're making, but also in terms of scarfing down food. I mean, how many people just eat, and then 20 minutes later, you're like, wow, my belly's full. I ate more than my body needed, right? We're very disconnected from our bodies. We're disconnected from the actual food. So what I teach is mindful eating, in a sense, mindful, conscious, and compassionate eating. So connecting with, where did that food come from? How does it look? Oh, it's so beautiful. Finding so much gratitude for the food, as well as gratitude for my body. How can I be compassionate to myself? I can fill it with amazing nutrient-dense foods that taste amazing, that make me feel good, that give me energy, that bring me to life, that keep me strong, that fuel my workouts. All this intention around, why am I eating this food? And when we're doing it mindlessly, we're very disconnected from that. It slows us down. I mean, our digestion starts in our saliva, right? So when we're just barely chewing and swallowing it down, we're missing out on a lot of digestion, and then people have digestive issues, and then they're bloated and they don't feel good. So it all fits together. It helps slow us down. It helps us consume less, and not from a restriction standpoint, but from a standpoint of, I'm going to give my body how much it actually needs. And when we do that, our body releases the extra body fat. So we don't need to count calories. We don't need to track macros. Everybody's body is unique. And once we're very connected with that, we can start to experiment and understand how that all fits together. So also the energy that it takes to count and track and stress about what you're going to eat, where you're going to eat it, when that is released, it opens the doors to spending that energy in much more meaningful ways. And I think that also is something we try to fill voids with food. And it allows people an opportunity to kind of connect with their purpose and with the world around them, as well as with the food in front of them.
And how long have you been doing the coach stuff? type stuff?
Yeah, I've been doing this about 6 years. I created my brand, Sexy Fit Vegan, in 2013. I guess it's been 8 years. So 2015 is when my book came out, and then I started the coaching programs.
What's the book called?
The 6 Weeks to Sexy Abs Meal Plan. Yes.
And I guess you have a website too, right?
Yes.
What is that?
So I've got sexyfitvegan.com and ellamajors.com, my name.
And they can find your book there, and they can get your help there. And
Yes,
everything.
so you can reach out there.
Do you have any like tips if somebody is having like IBS or something like that? Have you been able to help anybody with that, or have you ever had problems with that and been able to overcome that?
Well, I used to have all sorts of digestive issues, and literally I was listening to Dr. Clapper, who I know you've had on this show, talk about chewing your food to a paste before swallowing. So this was maybe 5 or 6 years ago. And
Dr. Furman, he says, chew, 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 chew.
chew, 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 like 30 chews, yeah. I mean, make a smoothie in your mouth, whatever you want to say. And none of it sounds very fun or appealing, but that was the game changer for me. It literally made the biggest difference just chewing my food to a paste before swallowing. My digestive issues went away. And I'm not saying that everybody, that'll solve everybody's problem. There's so many vegan doctors now that specialize in the gut and IBS that I would recommend people go to. But a lot of people, that's a first step that's going to benefit people regardless. So, yeah.
How does the mindfulness play into all this? Like it just seems maybe a little bit obscure or something when somebody says mindfulness when you're kind of eating.
Yeah, and that's why I don't really say it so much. Like I don't use the word mindfulness around eating, just for that reason. People are like, oh, that's kind of woo-woo or whatever. Yeah, like it's a little weird.
Like maybe bring that home a little.
When you can tell people about the results that you can achieve and then give them the how, we don't need to label it necessarily, but it's that slowing down, especially the slowing down, because you can recognize when you're full. Everybody can say, okay, 20 minutes later, I ate till I thought I was full, and then 20 minutes later, I'm over full. I could have dealt with probably 20% less, right? If you take your time eating, you're really able to connect with your body's signals.
Yeah.
And so it's just very practical but the problem is most people have been eating, 20, 30, 40 years, scarfing down their food. So that reprogramming of how you eat, it takes some work at first. And that's why having a group program where everyone's going through it at the same time and supporting one another, and you have 8 weeks where you're saying, okay, I'm committed for these 8 weeks. Doesn't have to be forever, because once you've reprogrammed, it becomes your new way of eating, and then it's not hard. I've been doing this now, for five years myself, eating super slow, and I don't have to think about it. It doesn't take extra effort. It's just how I eat, and it feels great.
Yeah, and this reminds me of like the blue zones. They say they typically eat like till they're 80% full.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's cool. Now, I've also heard doctors, or people, especially doctors, like a couple recommend sitting down at the table instead of like trying to eat in front of the TV, right?
Yes.
Little things like that
Yes.
might help you kind of get more in tune with all this, right?
1,000%. Eating undistracted. Again, especially at first, while you're just learning this new way of eating and connecting with your food, to be there with your food, not watching TV, not at your desk doing work, to really be there with your food.
Yeah, that could be so hard because people get so busy and you want to be so stimulated, and it's hard to like really appreciate all the stimulation that the food's giving.
Yes.
What about like time though? Time of day? Like, does that matter much?
I really believe everybody's body and their lifestyle is unique, right? So for me, the intermittent fasting, I recommend and do for myself at least 12 hours between dinner and breakfast. Beyond that, I think what works for some people, and the way I coach my clients, everybody's different. There's some people that intermittent fasting works really well. The way my training schedule is for myself, it doesn't really work out for me. A lot of the people that I'm working with have disordered eating, meaning they've done the yo-yo dieting. Their weight, has fluctuated a lot because they'll go to the extremes. And what I'm doing with these people is helping them get away from the dieting and get into a way of eating intuitively through connecting with your body and figuring out exactly what it is your body needs and wants and what works for you in your life. That's not about prescribing another type of diet. That's really about helping people connect with their own sense of what's right for them. So I have a very specific process that we go through to help people get there. And yeah.
Do you think that the ethics is important to interject with your clients ever? And do you? I mean, do you ever like recommend anything in that way?
Yeah, so what I like to do is meet people where they are. I've got my master's degree in social work, and so I've got that whole education piece of this. But so meeting people where they are is important in the end, right? But then what it is for me is saying, okay, yes, maybe they're coming at it from the health angle or weight loss or whatever. So yes, that's a plant-based diet. That is a type of diet. But once they're doing that, that's when their guard is down, right? So that's when we can say, oh my God, thank you for what you're doing for the animals. That's amazing that you're saving this many animals, every single year by eating your plant-based diet. That's so, and for the environment, oh my gosh, thank you for what you're doing. It's so beautiful. And people can respond to that, and start to connect themselves with doing something good for the planet, right, and for animals. So I think that's kind of the in. I think the ethics is absolutely essential to mix in there to create long-term change. So I think people generally will do something for somebody they care about, right, more than they'll do for themselves. People keep commitments to other people more than they keep commitments to themselves. So once their guard is down and they realize that they're doing something so good for the planet and animals, then I think they're much more likely to stick with it.
So having your MSW, I'm sure you've probably learned some things that are invaluable for helping others help others take on this lifestyle. Is there any kind of tips there that maybe you could provide from your experience or education there?
Yeah, I think one thing I really got from the MSW training was connecting with empathy. And empathy for animals was very natural for me from a very young age. But I think something in the vegan movement that we often forget or are not able to accomplish is having empathy towards people, especially when we're thinking about suffering of animals and looking at people who are contributing to that suffering. And to be able to have empathy and to have compassion for those people can be really hard. And I think part of the MSW training is really putting yourself in somebody else's shoes and understanding, not excusing behavior, but understanding it so you can ask the right questions to empower them to make shifts in the way they see the world. And that's what coaching's all about too, right? It's about not telling people how to think, but helping people gain the tools they need to think for themselves.
Say you were going out to eat with somebody and you're getting ready to order and they say, hey, is it okay if I order like chicken or a burger or something like that? How would you respond to that?
I would let them know that it hurts my heart. I mean, literally, like, that's the truth. And they asked, I mean, could I be there? Yes. And watch them eat the chicken? Yes. But if they're gonna ask,
yeah,
that's what I'm gonna lead with, because that's the honest truth. I'm like, order whatever you want. Is it hard for me to sit here and watch you eat a once living being that wanted to live? And yeah, it hurts my heart. Just very matter-of-factly, and yeah.
Remember you were talking about asking questions?
Mm-hmm.
What if you just asked, why are you asking me that?
That's good. That's
Could
good.
that work?
Yeah.
I mean, is that kind of like what you were saying earlier about questions?
No, that's really good.
Yeah.
I like that one. Why, well, I'm curious, why are you asking me that?
Yeah.
Oh, I like that.
Okay, I'm glad
I think
it has your approval. Okay.
That's Ella approved. I like that one a lot. I'm curious what they would say, and I'm thinking they would say, well, I want to be respectful. I have friends that will only eat when they're around me, vegan.
Okay.
Not because they care so much, but because they want to be respectful of me. So they said that, then that would open the door for me to share, I guess.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Or inquire and help them think through why they're
Yeah.
asking it. Sometimes when people first go vegan, they're so gung-ho, they might be kind of pushing people away, right? Have you found that to be true with maybe some of your clients or yourself even, or others you know? Well, you started so young. I've noticed that a lot of the people holding up those signs tend to be newbies, right?
Yes, exactly. No, and it's interesting, and you do so many interviews with people that have been a long-term vegan, and it's like the longer, I think for a lot of people, the longer we are vegan, the more we understand how trying to convince people through those methods is just not that effective. But when somebody has just made the shift and they've just made that connection and they've just learned the information, they're like, like I was when I was 15. I was like, wow, I know now. Everybody needs to know, right? And of course, because I just made this switch, then if I tell the person that tells somebody, they're going to make that switch too. And then it's very disappointing when they don't, right?
Yeah.
And it brings up anger and it brings up emotions and sadness and devastation. Like there's a lot that comes along with that can make somebody feel angry or, lash out. And I think that has created some infighting within the vegan movement, right? Between people that are like, how can you be so kind to people that are hurting animals, right?
Yeah.
How can you be kind to them?
Yeah.
How can you be compassionate to them? And the truth is, the opposite doesn't work. So, I mean, if you just think about it, like,
In
and
a different stage,
yeah, and who wants to, we have to think about this, okay, the vegan club, right? Who wants to join a vegan club where everybody's mad and angry and not enjoying life and depressed? Nobody wants to join that club, and all we want is for people to join our club. So we've got to make this vegan thing so attractive, so appealing, so beautiful and joyful and loving and welcoming. We've got to ask ourselves, what can we do to create that kind of club? And what is my piece in that? And it's so challenging. It's so hard. When you're connected to the suffering and your heart's so open, it's hard to find that joy and it's hard to shine that light. That's what we're here to do. So that's our mission. So that's where, I feel really good about the coaching I do. Whether somebody's already vegan and needs to connect to that compassion for themselves and other people that aren't vegan, or somebody who's ready to connect to compassion for all living beings. I think it all comes down to compassion.
It's so cool when somebody can take who they are as a person genuinely and take something that has nothing to do with veganism and then interject that into there and then emanate it kind of insidiously.
Mm-hmm. And I want to be clear too, I think there's absolutely direct action. There's an important place for direct action, and I'm not saying we shouldn't do that. I mean, look at the trials that have happened recently from people going in and rescuing animals out of factory farms, and the victories and the systemic change that is possible, that can be sparked by direct action is so important. And I have so much admiration and respect for people that go in there and save animals. That said, I still am going to stand by the anger toward other people is not helpful. And it's hard to control. I mean, we're all human. Even as vegans that are so connected, we're human, and it's hard.
I wonder if there's as much of that anymore, though. Do you feel like it's the stereotypical angry, pushy vegan is still as much a thing as it used to be?
I think it's becoming less pronounced within the community. The people that are, they get a lot of attention. So I think the few people get a lot of attention, and
we are improving it.
I do, yes, I do believe so.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I hope so. Yeah, so I'm not alone in that observation.
Yeah.
Yeah, because sometimes people, they still think we are, even if we're not.
Right.
Is there anything about vegans you wish you could change?
Well, that's lumping vegans into one group.
Yeah.
We're all pretty different. Yeah.
I'm hoping that my channel reflects that because I try to cover a lot of diversity. And it's so cool that I'm here in Florida for this vegan fitness and health expo that we were just at.
I was a judge
Yeah, cool.
on the
So you're a
for the
part of
bodybuilding
that.
competition.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Yeah. How did you get involved in that? And maybe you pitch that a little bit.
What I've loved and what I love about having a podcast is really connecting with amazing people like you're doing yourself through these interviews. And Jeff Palmer, the founder of, you interviewed him, I'm sure.
Not yet.
Okay. Jeff.
He's been so busy.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Clean machine.
Yeah, he's somebody that I connect with. I love being able to connect with other experts that are also on a spiritual path, looking at consciousness and expanding, because I think that's, when it comes to the movement, helping people be more conscious. So connecting with other experts that are both health and wellness experts, doctors, and are looking at the big picture systemically, and that are looking at just the human race and how we're all working to elevate together as a race, is really special and meaningful to me. So that's why I connected with Jeff, and he created the Vegan Health and Fitness Expo and the 100% vegan bodybuilding competition, the only one in the world. And that he asked me to be a judge. It was such an honor to be a part of that. Back in the day when I competed, I was like the only vegan, and now there's an entire show dedicated to vegans. So that's pretty badass.
Yeah, it is. And I'm so honored to be here because vegans are far and few between already enough. It's so neat to have so many of you, athletic types all in one place. Are there others out there that you admire what they're doing that are into the fitness stuff that we might want to look at, like Jeff Palmer, that others might want to consider, that you want to throw out there?
Oh, yeah. Oh, there's so many. Have you, Patrick?
The Boomian?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, where's he at?
You're gonna have to expand to Europe eventually.
Yeah, I know.
Europe, UK. Yeah. Fiona Oakes is might be my favorite human in the whole world. Yeah. Not to pick favorite vegans, but she might be mine. She's incredible. She has world records in ultra marathon, some of the toughest races in the world, in Antarctica, across the Sahara Desert, without a kneecap. And she does everything she does is for the animals. She has a sanctuary, and she has multiple sanctuaries. She lives on a sanctuary that takes care of 400 plus animals, which she does largely on her own. She's an incredible human. For me, people that are make sacrifices and run through pain and doing all that, because what she says is that whatever she's going through, hers is a choice. The animals don't have a choice. So if she can do that, then she's going to do it, all for the animals. So Fiona Oakes,
It's beautiful.
Yeah,
so that's like
she's
your
amazing.
peak person.
Yeah, those are my people. Well, I know you did Danny and Giacomo.
Not yet. I'm getting ready to.
Oh, you are.
Yeah.
Oh, they're nuts. Okay, and Robert Cheek.
I think it's impressive that there's so many. Corinne.
Corinne, Corinne Sutton's amazing.
Oh,
Robbie Ballinger.
Okay.
You got to get Robbie. I had him on my podcast, and he ran across the United States on plants. He has world record of the most. He ran over 100 miles in one day around Central Park. He does it all on plants to promote plant-based diet. He's amazing. Georges Larac, he's one of the all-time famous hockey players. He's got his own book. He's amazing.
There's a guy in Boston I'm hoping to get a hold of. He broke the Guinness Book of World Records for doing push-ups. Have you heard of him?
Mm-mm.
So I'm 58 right now. So last year I was 57. I did 21,008 push-ups in 12 hours.
21,000?
Yeah, in 12 hours.
Frank Madrano, he's one of the most famous calisthenics athletes. He's so great to look at.
Now, your podcast, we didn't really hit on that. And you mentioned some of the people that you've interviewed. I guess you have a YouTube channel.
I do have a YouTube channel, but it's on my website, ellamajors.com. You can see I've got the Vegan Life Coach podcast and Rise and Thrive podcast. And the Rise and Thrive is the interviews-based one. Dotsie Bausch, Jason Robel, Fiona Oakes. I have some great interviews on there.
Wow, that's cool. I'll have to check that out, especially this Fiona. Because
Yeah,
you keep
I know. I'm gonna
mentioning
rave about her.
What's a day of eating look like for you?
Yes, I'm a salad eater for breakfast. So yeah, I have lately it's been either a kale or arugula salad with white beans, and actually I massage with a little olive oil. I massage the kale, then I put white beans and nutritional yeast and spices and pumpkin seeds on top. And yeah, I've found that this nice hearty greens and beans is the base of my entire menu, usually greens and beans. So lots of veggies and lots of legumes. Don't really do many smoothies or shakes anymore these days. I enjoy chewing my food and eat lots of salads.
Yeah. Now, Brooke Goldner, she's pretty much into the smoothie
Yeah.
stuff, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think there's nothing wrong with smoothies.
Yeah.
I ask my clients this, how do you enjoy smoothies? Do they satisfy you? Because I think that's part of it, is like what satisfies you. And yeah, just lately but I'll go through phases.
Yeah.
And that's what intuitive eating's all about. It's about saying, okay, what is my body telling me that I want, and how much and when, and going with what my body's telling me, which changes.
I'm so glad the reason why I was like awesome in response to you saying salads for the breakfast is because I've been doing like growed oats and stuff typically, or still oats if I can, but I'm really hoping to get to the salads. Nutrition facts, Dr. Gregory, he talks about how chlorophyll, when it's in your bloodstream, the sun interacts with it and creates ubiquinol and all. So I have this like theory, if I start off my day like you're talking about,
Yeah.
and get a little bit of sunshine, something magical is gonna happen. It's kind of hard to do though, like, cause I'm so used to, but I'm sure once you start doing it, it's easy.
Exactly. It's like anything, we're all programmed, and it's important to understand that we're programmed about who we think we are. I mean, from that to the habits that we have from a very young age. And so that's hardwired. That's part of our subconscious programming. And to realize that we can change that change period, that period of transformation, that takes effort, that takes energy, that takes concentration, that takes commitment, that takes dedication, that takes all those things. But the cool thing to know is that it's not going to be like that forever, right? So once you make the switch, now you've got a new subconscious programming. That's your new automated way of moving through the world. So once you get there, then all of a sudden it's not extra effort.
Yeah.
So we just got to know that it's a temporary period of transition, that then it's smooth sailing from there. So yeah.
I'm sure you've heard of Furman, right?
Yes.
And
he's on my podcast.
Oh, good. Yeah, and he has his G-bombs he's infamous for.
Yes.
Do you have any kind of thing like that? I like to say beans, greens, grains, fruits, veggies, mushrooms, nuts, seeds, herbs, and spices.
Wow, that's a mouthful.
It's 10.
Yeah.
But I kind of flow with that. Do you have any kind of elevator pitch or acronym or anything?
Well, I do the Mike method of eating, which is mindfulness, which is intention, and compassion. So,
Like Mike the vegan?
Not like Mike the vegan, but spelled the same, yes.
Okay.
And it's just that pause, and I have a self-empowerment coaching system, and the power pause is what we call it. That's the moment that we get to step into the role of the observer and to make a conscious choice, right? And so to do that, we look at mindfulness. Okay, I'm gonna stop, and instead of just eating my food real quick like I usually do, I'm gonna pause, and I'm gonna eat this mindfully. I'm gonna eat it undistracted. I'm going to eat it with intention. What's my why behind eating this? Why am I choosing this to eat? And if it's something vegan junk food, and you say, because I feel like it and I'm going to, that's okay, because you're making a conscious choice, right? So most of the time you're going to choose something that's going to make you feel good, that is healthy, that's full of nutrients, that works for your body, that gives you energy, that is in line with your goals for the long term. Like, I want to be healthy and active way into old age and live a long, healthy life. So that's your intention behind it. And then the compassion piece. Am I being compassionate through this choice? Compassionate to myself, compassionate to my body, compassionate to animals, to the earth. So really taking that power pause and then using the Mike method to eat with consciousness.
Are there certain staples that you feel like you absolutely should get to get adequate nutrition?
Yes. Again, greens and beans are like the staple, and then sprinkling on nuts and seeds. So, and variety is really key too. I mean, admittedly, probably don't eat as much variety as I should, but I'm doing all right. So, try to mix up the greens, mix up the beans, but always having a salad for breakfast, and then sprinkling in some whole grains here and there. But I think sticking with the most nutrient dense. And what I love about beans, legumes, is that they're so packed with both protein and complex carbohydrates and fiber and nutrients. So they're just such a perfect food. They're very satisfying. They fill you up. They help you with muscle growth and definition. They help you just fill your tummy with the fiber and help your digestive system. Satiating, all of those. So yeah, beans, I'd say eat your beans. and for people that are newer to being vegan, understanding that your gut biome, and you can throw out episodes for them to watch about their biome, but knowing that there's going to be adjustments, right? So not going from eating no beans to eating platefuls of beans. That might cause digestive distress. Doesn't mean that beans aren't good for you. It just means that your system hasn't adjusted to create an environment that breaks them down. So just knowing that it's usually helpful for most people to ease into these changes from a gut biome perspective.
Yeah. And then your workout routine, do you try to work out before you eat or after you eat, or does it matter?
Yeah, I usually, for me, my ideal time, I eat a little the greens and beans in the morning, and then 3.5 hours later, I do my training, which consists of either hot power yoga, calisthenics, sometimes weight training, Muay Thai, kickboxing. I've been doing Muay Thai for 20 some odd years, so sparring, boxing, that good stuff, a good mix, lots of outdoor training.
Any last minute encouraging words you would like to share with people, or anything that we didn't cover that you would like to get out there?
I think we're all on our own path, right? Our own journey from our own perspectives. And really important to approach life, approach ourselves, approach other people with both curiosity and compassion. And I think if we can live by that philosophy of I'm approaching life and approaching myself and other people with curiosity, profound curiosity and fierce compassion, and being true to ourselves and being open to discovering our blind spots. I think if we can all come from that space, we can connect so much better with each other, with the planet, with our mission, and come together and work together to create change in this world.
Awesome. You're doing an amazing job, and it's really remarkable, unbelievable, really, that you started at such a young age and have been in such a big influence on your family and everything, and now you're just taking that to the extreme next level, and it's an honor to be here, and thank you so much.
Thank you, Jeff. I really appreciate what you're doing. It's an honor to be a part of it.